The Bub Hub Club is proudly brought to you by Kayana Photography, Fully Sick Bags and The Pregnant Book.
Hi and welcome back to the last Bub Hub Club in this series. I'm Brad Lauder, your host and co-founder of the Bub Hub, Australia's leading independent parenting website. As mentioned previously, the Bub Hub site offers a wealth of information and advice on countless parenting topics, so check it out today. In this episode, we'll be looking at IVF and fertility issues, as well as parenting and support in the 21st century, and how the Bub Hub, amongst others, can help. So stay tuned. Welcome back. It's amazing how things have changed in such a short period of time. I mean, 50 years ago, we didn't really have phones, and 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have mobile phones. Technology is changing at a rapid pace, and it is changing parenting. Even just a generation ago, parents relied on books, advice from family members, and occasional trips to the doctors. Raising kids in a village was an everyday occurrence. These days, there's an app for everything, from timing ovulation to packing a lunchbox. You'll find it all online. In fact, you'll find it all on the Bub Hub. Shameless plug number one. In this episode, we'll be looking at the changing face of parenting. We'll touch on some of the tricky topics that we haven't covered in previous episodes, and we'll talk about how the online experience can enhance your parenting journey. But first, we'll be chatting about one of the most significant ways that technology and science has changed parenting, the introduction of IVF. We're joined by fertility specialist Dr. Andy Stamattio. Dr. Andy Stamattio. Thanks for joining us, and apologies again. Dr. Stamattio has worked in the Queensland Public Health System for 22 years. He started obstetrics and gynecology private practice 3 years ago and joined City Fertility Centre as a clinical associate in 2010. Dr. Stamattio has a special interest in fertility issues related to endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome. I got them all right. That was good. Thank you. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
So I guess the first question people want to know is, if you're not having much luck conceiving, when do you seek help?
Well, firstly, if you're considering having a pregnancy, I suggest that people go see their GP and get a pre-pregnancy counselling session with your GP. Basically things like checking immunisations and making sure your pap smears are up to date, getting advice about folic acid supplementation and things like foods to cut down on, things like smoking and alcohol and other foods you should avoid during early pregnancy. Then for most people, if you've had 12 months of trying to conceive without any success, I think it's then time to see your GP again, who will then start some investigations. Now, depending on your situation, some GPs will start investigating themselves and try to fix any little problems, and some important issues such as making sure you're getting the timing right with your period and when your ovulation is supposed to be happening.
Right.
And those simple things are all that's needed most of the time. But if you've been trying for 12 months and been unsuccessful, your GP can't really fix the problem, or you're a couple who's over 30, female partner's over 35 years of age, then I suggest, and you've been trying for 6 months, probably suggest you seek help with a fertility specialist.
What are the few other things you might be able to try before IVF?
Well, as I said, I mean, the GPs have their role to play, and some of them will do a fairly good job in that, and no need to see a fertility specialist. But certainly, when you come to see a fertility specialist, we will again go through all that the GP has done, and try to fix any little problems. So it may be that you have endometriosis and need laparoscopic surgery to clear the disease, and hopefully that will return your fertility. Or you have a problem with what we call anovulation, so you're not producing eggs. Maybe require you to go on a tablet or something like that to get your periods going again and get pregnant. And then there's a few other things, like when you're starting to get into treatments like ovulation induction, where we stimulate the ovaries to produce some eggs, and you either do timed intercourse or artificial insemination.
Right.
And then obviously if all those things don't work, then you're someone who's a candidate for IVF.
Right.
So we find that
there's a lot of things, a lot of stages before you get to that stage.
Yeah, well, we find that probably 30 to 40% of patients who come to us actually get to IVF because the rest of them will get pregnant before that.
Oh. Well, as long as we're getting pregnant, that's what the Bub Hub's worried about, because we want more people having babies, and that's all that we can do. So what are the main fertility issues you're seeing in the clinic? In the female partners, common issues that I see are endometriosis. About 25% of my patients have endometriosis, and about 20% have polycystic ovarian syndrome. We're finding an increasing number having premature ovarian failure, where basically their eggs are starting to dry up, and that's usually the older women fall into that path. But I have seen that same problem in younger women. Obviously that needs further investigation, but I do see quite a lot of that. Okay. So what are the success rates like for IVF now?
Well, due to recent advances in the last 4 or 5 years, things like new freezing techniques, or what we call vitrification, growing the embryos to blastocyst stage, which is usually a day 5 embryo. We're seeing...
you can't use those big words, you confuse me, I'm very simple. Blastocyst?
Blastocyst is basically just a day 5 embryo. Okay. And we're putting the embryos back in at day 5. We're getting... For most months at our centre, we're getting fertility rates in one cycle of 35 to 40%. And we're seeing about 90% of our patients falling pregnant or achieving a pregnancy after 3 cycles.
So how has the IVF technology changed parenting, do you think?
Well, certainly we're getting more and more couples being able to access it these days, and more couples are achieving pregnancies.
Is it more affordable now than it used to be?
I think so.
Yeah.
There have been some changes which have been good and bad regarding the Medicare rebates and things like the baby bonus, and obviously in recent times the global financial crisis hit people hard, so it's decreased affordability to a degree, but overall it is an affordable thing, I feel, for most people.
Okay, and what sort of, well, I suppose, how many people can't you help? I mean, most people you can help, right?
The majority, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, obviously we have other things we can do. For instance, as we were talking about earlier, women who are running out of eggs, there's often a time where you can't get any eggs from a particular woman, so you may require the use of donor eggs. In some cases it's a male infertility problem, and we may need to use donor sperm. But we can get people pregnant, and we in our centre, our policy is that we can do artificial reproductive techniques up until the age of 50, or the normal time of the menopause. And obviously beyond the age of 42, having pregnancies with your own gametes is not a high probability thing, so we need to go into donor.
So Andy's used a lot of words there that I don't understand, but all the information and a lot of this sort of discussion is on the site. I'd like to thank Dr. Andy for joining us today, and if you'd like to know more about fertility and IVF, you can visit the City Fertility Centre website at cityfertility.com.au. We'll be back after the break to chat with our very own forum manager Jen about parenting in the 21st century. Don't go away. Welcome back. We've been joined by Bub Hub's very own forum manager, Jen. Jen has been a member of the Bub Hub since 2005 and is now a forum manager. Basically, she looks after over 102,000 people. She has 2 young boys and leads a rather chaotic life balancing several jobs and motherhood. Before the break, we were talking about IVF, but there are plenty of other ways that conception, pregnancy and parenting has been impacted by technology. Plenty. We'll chat about that, and also, as it is the last show of the series, we'll touch on some of the other parenting issues that we've not covered so far. So Jen, parents in particular have embraced new technology. Why do you think there's a growing number of people who need to find support online?
I think communities in general have changed. A lot of families now are really struggling to pay the bills. So to have access to something that fits around double incomes to full-time working parents is hard to find.
Absolutely.
It's a lot harder to meet up with other parents and organise play dates and that sort of thing. Whereas online, you can organise it around the kids' nap time. You can do it in your pyjamas. You don't have to leave the house. You don't have to stress. It's something you can do after the kids go to bed at night. So it just frees up that. It means you can fit it around your own schedule.
Now, I was surprised to see there was so many people on the forum like at 1 a.m. and
Exactly.
they're breastfeeding.
I've posted at 3 o'clock in the morning, and because the Perthies are often still up,
Yeah.
they're there to respond. So it's a great way to network with people right around Australia.
Great. And is there some groups that find online support more beneficial than others?
I think everyone benefits from it, but for sure there's some niche groups. For example, single parents. There's an amazing network on Bub Hub for single parents. And also, if you find yourself on the IVF or egg donation journey, there's some amazing women on there for that as well.
Oh, well, that's a nice segue. She's done well there, Jen. She's led me into, because one of our original guests for this show had to cancel as she is in hospital today having her second Bub Hub baby. That is one of the ways the forum is helping parents. Jen, what can you tell us about that story?
On Bub Hub, we have an egg donation section, and there are rules and regulations from state to state regarding what you can post.
Yep.
So if you do go on that section, please check the rules.
Yes.
But once you've read the rules, make your post, and it's amazing what can come from that. This Bub Hubber in question made a post looking for an egg donor, and she found an egg donor through Bub Hub, which is wonderful.
Yes.
And she's just had her second baby through this process. One of the other Bub Hubbers volunteered to help out, and together they've made the egg donation journey, and now her family is complete.
It's the same person, though,
Same person.
so that the kids are actually full siblings. Yes. Well, that's fantastic. So, and we wish them all well today in hospital having this cesarean right now. We know people are always looking for answers on the big issues like pregnancy, feeding and sleeping, and we've covered those through the series. But what are some of the other topics that are discussed online?
I think it's important to remember there's no such thing as a silly question. And when you start parenting, nobody knows all the answers. It's so hard.
True.
And it doesn't matter how many books you read, you're not going to know all the answers. So the important thing to remember is there's no silly question on Bub Hub.
Yes.
And we talk about everything from what to put in your lunchbox, what to wear, to job interviews, right through to talking about your husband and your mother-in-law when you just need to get that vent
and
out.
Sex lives and all sorts. I moderated the forum for a little while. I had to stop because it was a bit rude for me. I'm a bit gentle. So, and then I translated some of the acronyms and I was like, oh my God.
But it's also good that way because you're talking with a username, so you can talk about things like that without it being involved in your personal life.
Absolutely. So that's so what topics are quite controversial?
There are quite a few controversial areas. There are.
I knew that.
Circumcision.
I was just asking so you could answer.
Circumcision and non-circumcision.
Oh, yes.
Breastfeeding versus bottle feeding.
Yeah.
Also, like whether to have a home birth with your home birthing pool right through to an elective C-section. So there's all those different degrees of what your birth plan might involve. And to vaccinate and not vaccinate. I'd say that they're the four biggies on the forum.
Control crying?
A little bit.
It's calmed down a bit.
Yeah, it has a little bit.
So we've talked a lot about new parents, but mums with older children still need a support network, don't they?
Yep, for sure. I mean, I joined Bub Hub in 2005.
And you're ancient.
I am ancient. Thank you very much. Basically because I realised that I would not necessarily have the support network once I stopped work.
Yes.
And I found Bub Hub, and yet my children are now 5 and 7, and I still find things I can write about on Bub Hub. And even if I don't go online necessarily with an issue, there might be someone I can help. So I might go on just to read all the new posts and to answer and offer support.
Well, that's really important. I think, like the forum at any one time, there's a lot of people on there, but the majority of those people are actually guests, so they're not actually posting, they're just getting information. They're lurking and getting information. So it isn't just advice and support, is it? There are many tools online that can help with parenting.
Yeah, for sure. If you go into the other areas of Bub Hub, there's checklists, including safety checklists. So if you're going to buy a pram, check online and get familiar with the criteria of what each pram needs to have before you put your child in that pram.
Yes.
And one of the other checklists that I love and has changed our household is the getting ready for school checklist, which has words and pictures.
Yes.
So even preppies who can't necessarily read yet can use it to get ready for prep. And it's just having breakfast, getting your uniform on, packing your bag, getting your hat, sunscreen, that sort of thing. So instead of nagging the whole morning, you can actually just say, have a look at your list, and they can tick it off themselves.
And stars. What kids will do for a star is just
Stickers.
insane. Absolutely. Why are people more likely to come to a forum rather than just ask a forum on Facebook, for example?
Yep. I think there's a couple of reasons. One is you have a username, and That really helps, especially in the early stages of pregnancy. You don't want necessarily everybody in your friends group or employers, potentially on Facebook, to know that you're pregnant.
Or your mother-in-law, if you're trying to get pregnant.
Keep it hidden for a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's just that little bit of separation from your real name and your real life. The other thing is Bub Hub is huge compared to your friends list.
Yep.
Your friends list, you might have a couple of hundred of friends. If you're really popular, a couple of thousand, maybe. But nowhere near the resource pool we have on Bub Hub, where you can put something out there. And look, it may be your child may be diagnosed with something you've never heard of before, but some other Bub Hubber might have been through that situation. So it's just that amazing information base that you can utilise.
Well, that was it. We travelled back to England a couple of years ago, and one of Hillary's good friends had a child with a very rare heart condition, and she was telling Hillary about this amazing site she'd found where a person had a kid that had almost exactly the same problem about 3 months ahead, so she could explain it to her in layman's terms or what all the issues were. So, and then Hillary asked what the site was, and it was the Bub Hub. So that was quite fun. So we enjoyed that. Look. Thanks for that, Jen. Jen's joining us after the break. We'll be chatting about all the awesome tips and tools you'll find on the Bub Hub website, so stay tuned. Welcome back. This is our last segment of the series, so we wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the various ways the Bub Hub and even other websites can help. We want to highlight a few sections of the site because they are so useful, are free, and you have access to them 24/7. The goal of the Bub Hub is to put all the information in one spot so parents can make informed choices. However, that means that there is an enormous amount of information on the site. Finding the information that you want now is sometimes a challenge. There is a search function on the site that we highly recommend, and the menu bar at the top of every page breaks down the major sections so you can go straight to where you want to go. The forum is such a big part of the site. There is a wealth of information from thousands, hundreds of thousands of parents over 10 years. There's even an app for it. There are 1,000 to 1,500 people in the forum 24/7, and we've got sections specifically aimed at different groups. Jen, can you tell us about some of the various sections of the forum?
Sure. Bub Hub's constantly evolving. Basically, we have a very open communication with the members of the forum, and quite often we get emails requesting new sections being opened for particular issues, and we're happy to do that. So the forum is constantly growing.
Yes.
But of course, if you go through the trying to conceive section and then the pregnancy section and keep going down the forum, there's a friends chat section, and that is where we basically break all the parents up into little niche groups. So you've got your parents with partners in the armed forces, you've got single parents, you've got parents over 40, young parents, and parents with special needs, children with special needs, sorry.
That's a young parents group. There's a lot of texting in there.
There is a lot of texting and a lot of text typing, yes, for sure. But there's lots of different niche groups, and in each one, of course, you're looking for specific support networks.
Yes. Yes, one of a very, very, very tiny, weeny, little tiny bit of the forum is the Dad's Chat section, where there's, I think, about 50 men of the 104,000 forum members. So we are what I like to call estrogen whipped. Slightly outnumbered, but we are, they're dads. So if you have any questions, we are happy to help. You will get advice from the mums as well. But again, there's really a section of the forum for everyone. And,
there is.
And there's not much information that they don't talk about. So, it might not cover the entire spectrum of the parenting journey, but 99 point something, I think, is covered in that forum. While we're on the topic of moderation, can you tell us why the forum is moderated and who does it?
I can. Cyberbullying is real.
Yes.
It really is out there. And I think when people have got a monitor in front of them, they're quite brave to say what they think rather than what they would naturally say to your face.
Particularly when they're anonymous.
Which is one of the benefits of being on Bub Hub, is being anonymous. So basically the moderators are a wonderful team of volunteers who work really hard on the forum to ensure that Bub Hub stays a warm, friendly, supportive place. It's one thing to disagree in your parenting strategies, that's fine, but you need to express that in a polite way. No name calling, no aggression, no baiting. And basically a professional, calm discussion.
And the moderators are basically there to ensure that happens.
Exactly. I mean, you don't want a new member to come on, post something, and then for that thread to fall apart, because they won't feel welcome, and that's not what we're looking for. Absolutely,
and there's a very clear set of guidelines and rules for everyone. And again, the forum is about being a safe place to get and give information. So the moderating team at the Bub Hub, and they're about 25, 26, are just fantastic, and the forum couldn't run without them. They do a fantastic job. But of course, the site is more than just a forum. We have a whole team working on bringing the most useful and up-to-date parenting info in the form of articles each month and regular blog posts. We've also got an awesome directory that lists every Australian business that works directly with parents, free of charge, covering more than 130 topics. So everything from nannies and babysitters to pre and postnatal exercise, maternity hospitals, helplines and support groups. It's all there. And it's about allowing parents to find local information in their areas so that they can find their local maternity store or general nursery or even their local IVF specialist, as relates to this episode. So, Jen, switching hats from forum guru to parent, what other aspects of the site have you found useful?
Other than the forum?
Other than the forum.
Which I spend a lot of...
We get that.
Yep.
Move on.
I love the competitions.
Yes.
The competitions are awesome. And I really love the fact that not all the prizes are child related.
Yes.
So you do get prizes that come through like pampering packages and other prizes that come through that are specifically for mums.
For the mums.
And you also get some family-based prizes, which are awesome as well. So it's not all about the kids.
There's nothing for dads, though, guys. Just keep
there
that
is,
in mind. Well, very
rarely.
little. Yeah, well, okay.
Rarely.
Yes.
But then I love the articles as well because, let's face it, 10 years ago, parenting was very different. 5 years ago, parenting was very different. SIDS have come through and all the different rules and regulations for safety of products have changed.
Yep.
So it is important to stay up to date. So getting those articles keeps you up to date, keeps you in the loop. And I also love the fact that Bub Hub is connected with the product safety recalls.
Yes.
When Jack was little, his dummy was recalled and I wouldn't have known about that if it wasn't for Bub Hub.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, it's keeping up to speed. I mean, 2-3 years ago, what was blogging, you know?
Exactly.
And now we've actually got a person in the office just making sure that the blogs are, you know, recruiting bloggers and having good information that's interesting. And
funny.
It's up to funny. There's a lot of funny stories on it in our blog. There are also some really handy emails you can sign up to. We do a monthly newsletter, but we also do the pregnancy week-by-week emails, which are always very popular, particularly for first-time mums. They can give you an insight into how your baby's developing and how your body is changing. The baby and toddler development emails provide tips on each new milestone each month your little one reaches. So a section that parents find useful, particularly when the budget is tight, is the review section. Jen, what sort of things have you used the review section for?
I use the review section a lot when I was looking at car seats.
Yes.
I've got 2 boys who are 5 and 7 and they're big boys, they're tall and they're well built. And so we've gone through quite a few car seats because of the weight restrictions on certain ones. And I wanted, because they're not cheap, I wanted to check what I was getting was value for money. So I used it for those. I also discovered that we have a movie review section, which comes in handy if you're going to take the kids. You can check online what other families have thought of the movie first before you take the kids to the movies. So they're the 2 that I mainly used it for, and maternity wear. Which is a big section with a lot of reviews, but it's good to have a sticky beak at different brands and what other parents think of those brands.
Well, and then we got the app, and one of the things we found useful was shopping with my brother and sister for their stuff, is that you could actually have the app open and go through the reviews while you're in the shop, kicking the tyres of the pram, which, I can tell you there are 180 different prams in the review section. So there are very few prams that aren't reviewed and, by other parents, which is nice. So it's not just the companies giving you their spiel. So those are the major sections but there are a lot more. Basically, everything you need to know is at bubhub.com.au. Well, this is the last episode in the series. We'd like to thank all of today's guests and all of the guests who've joined us over the series, as well as the team here at Bridge 31 for helping us put it all together. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, and remember, if you have any questions about conception, pregnancy and parenting, then the Bub Hub can help. We are Australia's leading independent parenting website, so join the more than 795,000 unique visitors we get a month to find the answers to all your parenting questions. The best advice we have to offer is to use the information that works for you and ignore everything else. Something that worked in your first pregnancy may not work for you in your second, so just use the stuff that works for you. Remember that every journey is different and that you are not alone. We wish you all the best with your parenting journey, and we hope to see you next time.
The Bub Hub Club is proudly brought to you by Kayana Photography, Fully Sick Bags, and the Pregnant Book.